All right, so with that, I want to officially start our webinar. So this is a webinar that I offer for all of our learners that are starting their very first dissertation class. So we have several learners that are, hold on just a second. Tarilla, I'm going to promote you to a panelist so that you can help me with these chats. So what we have here today is 1 hour, and all of our learners that are starting their first dissertation class have been invited to join us. And so for those learners that are just joining us, I just want to reiterate once again, my name is Dr. Rachel Baling. If you look around on the screen, for those of you that can see my monitor, these are all either master methodologists or chairs that are going to be helping with the chat. Trilla, as you see chats coming up, can you go ahead and promote any chairs that are still out there that are looking to be a panelist as well? Awesome. And I think Sue Ann Highland should not be a panelist. I think she's a learner that I might have accidentally promoted. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I wanted to welcome everyone to the call. We are going to be together for about an hour. And this is primarily for learners in their first class, in their first dissertation, working on the proposal. So directly after this is the prospectus webinar, and that is for learners that are 2 classes back that are just starting to draft their prospectus. So for any of you that are looking for some tips and tricks and best practices for your prospectus, stay with us. Go through this call, and if for any reason you want to join me for that call as well, Tarilla will be posting the link so that you can go ahead and join us, and that webinar is going to start 15 minutes after this one ends. So with that, I want to go ahead and share my screen. I want to get started. Like I was letting all the learners know that we're here a little bit early. This PowerPoint will be emailed to all of you, and I will include all of the chairs and methodologists on the call so that if for any reason your learners need a copy and they didn't get one from my office, I want to make sure that they have it as well. And that will go out either later on this afternoon, or it will go out from Tarilla's sometime tomorrow. So my panelists will be answering any chat, so I want you guys to feel super comfortable with any questions that come up while I'm presenting. I'll leave some time at the end of this webinar to answer any questions specific to myself or any content that I cover that my panelists haven't been able to, or they're going to ask me to answer at the end. But I do speak as fast as an auctioneer. I have a ton of information to cover with you guys today. So panelists, if you guys see anything, go ahead, keep the chats alive, and at the end I'll open up some time. So our agenda today looks like this. We're going to talk about how this first dissertation course is meant to be a transition course. I'm going to dive very deeply into the proposal, into the actual template and the criterion table, and what that scoring looks like, and how to use that template to help your review cycles later on. I'm going to talk about the process. So I'm going to talk about how to create your own process, but how to concurrently learn the process that every doctoral student goes through as they draft their research proposal and then do their research and move into the full dissertation. And then I'm going to talk about that concurrency of work, how you will always be working on multiple documents from this moment forward all the way up into graduation. I'm going to talk to you about your next courses and how to make the most out of those. And I'm also going to talk about some progression tips. So I'm going to talk about some time management tips. For those of you that do not have 2 monitors that you work on and you use when you're working on your dissertation, go get 2 monitors. That is one of the best ways to either be pulling up a YouTube video or the Laird website or your prospectus and your proposal on 2 different monitors, and to be doing this concurrent work. That will help you more than anything else I could share with you is learning how to move between two screens. And then last but not least is learn your methodology. If you haven't heard this a billion times from me already, all over DCNet, in any residency that you might have attended, this will help you to gain your self-confidence more than anything else that I can share with you besides the two monitors. So I'm going to jump right back into the bulk of our presentation. So I'm going to move my monitor up just a little bit so you guys can kind of see it. And I want to talk about this cognitive shift. So this is the first piece that I wanted to start out our call with, is that now that you are in dissertation, thinking about this as a marathon and not as a sprint is the best way to think of it. 5 years ago, I had never ran more than 1.5 miles at one time without taking a break. In 2 weeks, I am going to run marathon number 9. And that's only been 5 years. But I can tell you that until I got to mile 18 of my first marathon, I didn't understand the preparation that was necessary to run those last 8.2 miles. And sometimes when you're in this doctoral program, you get to the end of your 2 years. So you get the end of your coursework. And I, for one, well, I just graduated from this program in April. So I am an EDD graduate. The ink on my dissertation is still not dry. I am such a fresh graduate. But I also work primarily with the methodologist group here at the college. And I work with the dean through the AQR and the IRB department. So I hear so often from learners that when they get to this class, they kind of feel like, this is mile 23 or mile 24. And I want to be the first one to tell you, you're at mile 18. So to have that perspective of now is when you are really starting to dig into understanding and doing that writing, this is the biggest cognitive shift that's going to happen in your program. So I really encourage you to start thinking about it differently. Now it's not about discussion questions. It's not about getting an A. It's about drafting a proposal that you're going to present to your committee to convince them that you have a gap, you have a need to do your research, and it's so well thought of and aligned that they are going to approve it, you'll be able to defend it, and move on to collect your data. So that is that cognitive shift that this class and the next one are all about. So I just want to touch very briefly on your committee. So when you first got assigned to this class, and I think you guys all started either last week or the week before, whoever is your faculty in this class, they are your chair. So they are scheduled out for you for the next 4 classes. And so I want you to think about that person as being your process expert, your future peer, but start thinking of that cognitive shift in that they are not your editor. They are not your content expert. They're not your therapist. They are that person that understands how to navigate through these very complicated milestones that is the process for doctoral students to move through to graduation. They're helping you to manage your committee members. Sometimes they might tell you things that you don't want to hear. I invite you to be very open to their feedback because they are your future peer. They're not your teacher, and they're really not your instructor. They are your dissertation coach to help you move through this process. I know when my chair explained this to me, she's like, Rachel, if you stop thinking of me as your teacher or your instructor and think of me as a peer who is on this committee with you, giving you feedback on how to move more efficiently and effectively through this program, you won't send me garbage because I'm your peer and I'm not here to edit your work, to fix your work, to tell you right from wrong. I'm here to help you to navigate this process of becoming an independent scholar. Kind of hard for me to swallow. I've never had a teacher tell me that before, but she's like, see, I'm not your teacher. And so that was something that I really want you to kind of start thinking about. The next one is your methodologist. So your methodologist isn't going to step into your committee until your chair feels like your prospectus is very well aligned, that it's doable, and it's written in a way that the committee can understand what you're saying. And so They might give you approval of your prospectus, but an approval of a prospectus only means that it's good enough in this stage to start transitioning it over to your proposal. But something that is deemed approved in a prospectus stage, the college and your committee is expecting you to keep working on it, because the difference between how you write your prospectus and the document that the dean signs later on down the road needs to be an exponentially different quality of writing and research. And that was something that was really hard for me to understand. I'm like, hey, you approved it. How come I have to keep changing it? It's that iterative process where it's good enough at the prospectus stage, but it's got to keep getting better in proposal, and it's got to keep getting better in dissertation. And as you go through this cognitive shift, it will happen. And I just want to encourage you that it will happen. And there's going to be moments throughout this process that you are going to feel like the smartest person ever. And then 10 minutes later, you're going to feel like the dumbest person ever. And I want you to embrace that. That means you're doing it right, because you are learning things that are so complicated and so interconnected, and you're trying to find a unique gap that is going to be a struggle. And you're going to feel really dumb because you can't synthesize this and it's just not coming together. But today I'm going to teach you some tricks on how to help that process and how to step back from it for a minute to make sure that you're still hitting those milestones. And then last but not least, I want to talk about your content expert. So your content expert, just like your methodologist, is there to support the chair. So the methodologist is there to be in partnership with your chair to look at what you've written and be able to give you some options to continue to make sure that it's doable in a data collection and data analysis perspective. So they're not there to get what's out of your brain and onto paper. That's your job. Their job is to give that support to the chair to make sure that it's all aligned based on the design that you're using. Same thing with your content expert. Your content expert doesn't step into your committee doing reviews of any document until proposal. They're not involved in the prospectus because it's such a high level 7 to 10 page draft of your 10 key points. So that's why I really encourage you, and I know you've heard this a million times, but the way that you are going to be able to move through this program more efficiently and more effectively and with stronger self-confidence is to keep reading and read with purpose. Don't wait until you've got it all figured out in your brain before you start writing. I'm going to talk a little bit later on what that free writing process looks like to get it out of the literature, into your head, and then down on pen and paper. But the content expert doesn't step in to kind of give you any feedback on your chapter 2 until you're in the proposal. So if you don't have your content expert yet, I strongly encourage you to find somebody that has a vested interest in you continuing their research or the current research that's happening on your topic. Try not to just find someone from a GCU faculty already unless they're really connected to your research, because it might be a couple months, it might be a couple classes until they step in, and you don't want them to become disengaged or not be interested in being in your committee anymore. And my second piece of advice is have a backup. Because life gets busy, people leave their current jobs, crazy things happen, and you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So if you have one content expert and they're totally on board, get that paperwork into your advisor quick as possible. Your advisor is going to help you to make sure that you have all your paperwork, that you have them as part of your committee, and then our office, within about a week or so, will create your learner dissertation page. I'm going to talk about that next. So the first thing, I want to talk about a little bit of housekeeping here. And so the first one is, I know you guys all got an email to join this webinar from your personal email. Going forward, your my.gcu.edu email that's on a link from your student portal, that's going to become your primary email. The college will no longer send stuff to your personal email account because now it becomes documentation. I, for one, when I was going through the program, I had it linked to my Yahoo, but just know that any documents that have attachments will not be forwarded. So I want to please encourage you to start getting in the habit when you log into LoudCloud. Just click on your student portal first, check your email, make sure there's nothing going on there. The next thing is, if you haven't already, you're going to have an individual success plan, which is that ISP, which is one of your deliverables. I encourage you to incorporate all of your goals that you write out on that ISP into the calendar function in your learner dissertation page once you have access to it, because this holds you accountable. This helps you to feel in control, because you make a goal, you talk about it with your faculty, and then you move it into the calendar. That way, anytime any of your faculty or your committee go into your ISP or your LDP, they see those due dates popping up, and it helps everyone to come together on the due dates that you're expecting to achieve in your class. The next thing that's different about this class is that your chair is going to start holding 2 Zoom calls per class. Normally, they'll hold them to coincide with a deliverable. So let's say, I think in week 4 and 7, you have a deliverable that's sent to them. So within 10 days, they'll set up a Zoom call with you so that they can share screens, kind of like for those of you that joined and you're able to see my monitor, very similar to this. So if you don't feel comfortable with Zoom and this video conferencing where you're seeing someone face to face, I really encourage you to download the free app on your smartphone, and also have it on your computer, and have a buddy. One of my girlfriends that went through the same cohort with me, we would practice with each other to do Zoom, and we'd share homework. We would peer review each other's work, or we'd go over, where we were in the program, because you don't want to practice with your chair. You want to be a little bit better before your chair's like, hey, let's join on Zoom. You want to kind of practice a little bit, because remember, they're a peer. They're a future peer for you. They're not your teacher. And so the expectation is that you feel a little comfortable, that you're understanding how to do the ISP and do this whole Zoom thing. The next thing that I talked about was your learner dissertation page. Now, the expectation from the college, so this is where it's a little different. So up for the last 2 years, you've been working in LoudCloud. I'm sure you guys are really good about getting in there and doing your discussion questions and posting your documents and being in the forum with each other and doing a lot of sharing and posting. That's going to change. So in this first class, you're going to have some other learners with you, and there's going to be some real discussion questions, and you're going to need to answer them. But in your very next class, that stops, and you move into your learner dissertation page. So in LoudCloud, you're only posting a generic comment just for attendance that says, I'm working on my dissertation. That's it. All of the rest of your participation points are from jumping onto Zoom with your chair to go over your feedback and being active twice a week in your LDP. And your chair is going to talk about what that activity looks like, but primarily it's about giving them a status update and also posting any of your documents. That's where you'll post it there as well. So I have included a couple links here for some dissertation ready and research ready webinars that are self-paced trainings that will help you to kind of immerse yourself a little bit more in getting ready to do all of this research. And I will show that to you in just a minute. This next slide, and I know it's really small, so you might want to wait until you get the copy of the webinar from me, but I wanted you guys to highlight this. So on slide 6, for those of you that are taking active notes, these are some great tips that I wanted to share with you guys about scholarly writing and scientific research, because these are the two components that are going to move you from successfully finishing foundational classes and not becoming ABD. You have to work on that scholarly writing. The expectations are going to be exponentially different. So the first thing is to be self-aware, to kind of think about, where is my writing now? How good am I at using active voice instead of passive voice? How good am I about creating a solid paragraph or a solid essay? How good am I at incorporating and synthesizing multiple complicated studies into a very succinct, concise paragraph that answers the template? That's the first step. And then the second step is to be very open to feedback that you're getting from your committee. Don't take it personal. It's a very different shift in writing that you've ever done before. So the same writing that got you A's in your foundational courses is not the same writing that's going to get you to have a published dissertation. And the best way to think about that is, in my last marathon, I ran the Prescott Marathon. It's one of the most difficult ones in the country. And it's because you start at like 5,500 feet and you climb to 7,000 feet. And then you drop to 5,400 feet. And then you climb back up to 7,000 feet. And then you drop to 6,000 feet. And then you're halfway done. Now you got to go back. I have never seen that many athletic, very, very fit people broken down on the side of a marathon than I did in that marathon between mile 18 and 20. The problem wasn't that they weren't fit and they weren't athletic. The problem was they had not made that shift of however they had trained in past marathons to train for this very specific challenge in this marathon. And as I passed them with their broken bodies and all kinds of crazy stuff going on, I kept thinking about this, in that there is such a big difference between the athleticism that got them to mile 18 and the athleticism that was needed to finish. So I want you to think about that this is a constant process, and just be open to the feedback that you're getting. It's not a reflection of your IQ or your intelligence or even of your capacity. It is just that this is the change that needs to happen in becoming that scientific writer. So I want to really encourage you guys to look through this when you get it sent to you from my office. The next one is, this is one of those tips that I wanted to share with you, and this is from me as a learner to you as a learner, is to organize your process. I've included the folders that I had on my desktop and also on a flash drive, and just back it up everywhere you possibly can, because you don't want to risk losing it. But have a system, because it's not a one and done. Like in your foundational classes, you wrote that paper, right? That 1,500 or 1,200 word paper, and you turned it in, you got a little bit of feedback, you got an A, done, never really looked at it again. That's not what happens now. The same document is going to go back and forth many times between your committee, between you and your chair, between your chair and your methodologist, and you want to keep organized. You don't want to get lost in the weeds on which iteration of that document you're working on. So these might not be the perfect folders for everybody, but I wanted you to have an idea, to have a kicking off point, because this worked really well for me and I wanted to be able to share it with you as well. And previously, I had mentioned that there's some amazing self-paced module trainings that are out there on our CERT, on our DC web. Here's some links. So this is a dissertation ready and then a research ready that really, it's very self-paced. It's not required. You don't have to do it. But especially for you psych students that didn't take a residency, I'd really encourage you to lean in and embrace any of these resources that are here for you to fully immerse yourself in this process. So that's slide 7. Slide 8, I'm not going to go through this line by line, but I just really want to encourage you that when you're in this stage where you have your committee and you're working with your chair, you're going to get some very complex feedback. You're going to get some feedback that might be more red ink and more bubble comments than you've ever had in your life. And instead of being frustrated, instead of lashing out in maybe an unprofessional way, I want you to step back for a minute and say thank you. Because it's those chairs and those methodologists that give you this feedback, that help you to self-correct, that are the angels on the sidelines that are going to help you to get to graduation. So if they're giving you feedback, hey, I remember when my chair said, Rach, this doesn't belong here. Rach, this is not scholarly. Change the way you're writing this. And I would sit back and go, that's kind of rude. And then I thought, oh, but it's right. I didn't write what was in my brain like I thought I did. But then when she said, Rachel, this doesn't belong here, my first reaction was I wanted to fight her and go, yes, it does. According to Pennebaker 2014, this belongs here. And then I thought, oh, I did not write it well enough. That's why she didn't understand. It's not because she's not an expert in my content. It's because I didn't simplify and document and synthesize in a way that an average reader could understand. And that's that awkward place where sometimes when you get frustrated, your frustration might squirt out in really unprofessional ways. And I just encourage you to remember that these are your potential peers and to always have that high level of doctoral professionalism. Now, this next slide, this is something that really helped my process from the last 8 to 9 months that I was in this program. And I graduated in just under 3 years. So I went in and out with my hair on fire. But I realized that I had to have a very strong grasp on my time management. But I also had to be very organized when I sat down to do my work, because I also work a full-time job. I have 2 part-time jobs. I was putting 2 teenage girls through college that lived with me. And my full-time job here at GCU is a lot of hours. And so I had to find a way to make it all work. And what I found was I would sit down to write a section on Saturday or Sunday, and I was trying to go to Google Scholar or ProQuest, pull down the articles, read them in depth, then synthesize them in my brain, and then write in the same 8-hour time frame. And I kept feeling, oh my goodness, I feel so dumb. How come I can't write a paragraph? And I realized that it wasn't my brain, it was my process. So the process that I started to work on was 2 things. The first is I set up a schedule and I put it on my calendar. Every Saturday and Sunday for the last 9 months before I graduated, from 7 to 3, I blocked out my calendar and I drove to my office at GCU, and that's all I did was work on my dissertation. I let all my friends and family know that's my dissertation time. But then now I moved backwards. And so on Sunday afternoon of that study, I already mapped out what I was going to write the next Saturday, which sections. And then I would go to those sections and I would look to see what my topic sentences needed to be, what I was going to write about. And I would pull down those articles on Sunday afternoon when my brain was fried and all I could do was go to Google Scholar and breeze through some articles. So then I'd pull them down and I'd print them out. And next time I sat down to write, which was every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, I'd go into work from 5:30 to 7:30 before my shift started. The first time I would write out the 10 key points on the cover page of every one of those articles, and then I would put it away. 2 days would go by and I'd let it just kind of brew in my head. So I could kind of start thinking about it subconsciously, thinking about the connections of those articles that I was going to write about. Then the next time I sat down to do my homework in the morning, I would just free write. I don't care about punctuation. I'm not making it glamorous. I just want to take what's in my brain and put it on paper. And then I would put it away. Then on either Thursday or Friday before my week ended, then I would write and draft out that paragraph or that section of my dissertation. Make it pretty, make it nice. Because what I found was when I let myself go through a process, instead of feeling so much pressure to pull down, find, and synthesize those articles in the same sitting, I found that I was able to kind of celebrate those little milestones and those little achievements instead of every single Saturday feeling like the dumbest person on the planet because I couldn't write a paragraph. So that was something that I wanted to share with you, were these steps that I use to write those more challenging sections. This next one is just all about learning your methodology and design. I can't stress enough how important it is if you are doing a quantitative study. Go and become a member of the Laird website. I think it's like $9.99 every 6 months, like $10, $12. Do that. If you think you're going to do a correlation or a causal comparative, go onto YouTube and Google how to do that. Look how to do that. Start digging into that. If you're going to do a qualitative study, and you're going to do interview questions, buy the books, buy the tips, do whatever you need to do to figure out what it really looks like to do an interview, and then just transcribe them and then decode them. Whatever you're suggesting is going to be your data collection and data analysis. Go out and figure out how to do it before you have to write about it. It's going to give you more self-confidence, 10,000 times more self-confidence to write those sections and write them well. This next one is some time management tips. I'm not going to go too much more into them, but just from a high level, now is the time to streamline everything. Don't take time off. If you can avoid it, don't take time off. I have a lot of learners that kind of step out and they want to go take a few months off to go write this or to do that. When you step off, you don't have your committee support. And also, there's so many learners that think they're going to take a little break now that they've kind of powered through their foundational classes. But if you take more than a day or two away from writing, you're going to feel like you're starting over when you try to write that section or try to fine-tune that section. So do everything you can to stay into class. I, for one, I schedule a marathon every 6 months in another state where I've never ran before, and I make a nice little 3-day weekend. Have a designated time and place where you go to study. I tried to do it at home in my office, but my family and my kids, they were so excited to have mom home. Hey, mom, real quick. Hey, mom, real quick. Or whenever I got frustrated, I'd go do some laundry or walk the dog, just because I was too frustrated to write. And I found that it was better for me to compartmentalize myself and go to a coffee shop or go to my office. So whatever works for you, but I really encourage you to take a moment of self-assessment and really figure out what that's going to look like. Because I wasn't doing my family any favors by being home, because I just kept getting frustrated because I wasn't getting my job done. And then the next one, last but not least, celebrate any milestones that you achieve along the way, whether that's passing a class, getting, finalizing a part of your prospectus, but schedule those celebrations, those little celebrations all the way along. Don't wait until graduation to feel like you're doing something really good for yourself. And this is just some tips. We've talked a lot about these already, but I wanted to make sure that this is slide 13. So in this class, this proposal class, you're going to need to be working on some things concurrently. And like I said, it's going to be over and over again. You're going to be working on one document while your committee is reviewing and approving another document. So in this class, you're going to be fine-tuning your prospectus, but you also need to be working on a very solid draft of your proposal. The reason that we do that, and the reason that that kind of kicks off that concurrent working that your brain's got to do, is that you don't want to wait until your prospectus is finally approved before you even start pulling down your proposal draft, because that is 3 chapters, and there is about 1/3 that you've never written about, and you've never read about, and you've probably not pulled articles for. And you're going to need to style your headings, and you're going to need to have a chance to read through it and look at the criterion table and see the expectations. You want to be ahead of the game. You want to always be 5 steps ahead of the game. So that's why you need to be fine-tuning here on the prospectus and then moving it into your proposal. Because like I said, it's never one and done. You're never going to just write one draft of your proposal and turn it in the committee. Oh, this is gold. print it. It's not going to happen because research is a ripple. If you change one research question or the purpose or the problem or a theoretical foundation, you're going to need to go back through all those little ripples and make sure that you've addressed it throughout the entire rest of your document, because this is scientific writing and it has to be aligned. There's very specific rules behind each one of the designs, and you have to meet those rules. So you have to say the same thing over and over in the exact same way. And so be ready for that. You're going to go through many iterations of your prospectus and your proposal, but you don't want to wait until your prospectus is finalized before you work on your proposal. Same thing. When you have your prospectus approved and you're not working on it anymore, you're going to be working on your proposal, but concurrently, you'll be working on your defense PowerPoint. So if you change something in the proposal, you have to concurrently be updating your PowerPoint because they have to be aligned. But you can't stop and not work on your PowerPoint until this is perfect, because then it's too late. Now you're going to feel a rush. And because we're all adult learners, crazy things happen in life. You have to be 5 steps ahead so that those life emergencies don't derail you. Then once you have your proposal approved and you've defended it, you need to be concurrently setting up your IRB package and doing your applications and all those other parts of IRB. Because if you wait until you have successfully defended, it's going to be too late and you're going to feel this crazy anxiety of, oh, it's not done and my chair's expecting me to turn it in already. So I encourage you to not only know your process, but understand the process. What comes next, what comes next, and what comes next. So go onto DCNet, pull down that milestone guide. 99% of your questions will be answered in that guide. So I want you to be really confident in that. Now I know we have about 20 minutes left, so I just want to explain chart number 17. So this was my process of moving concurrently through the prospectus to the proposal. So what I did was with 2 monitors, and that's why you see my hands up here. This is monitor 1, monitor 2. But I took everything in my prospectus and I moved it into my proposal template. Then I styled my headings so that it would show up on my navigation panel. And then I went through each section and I styled those headings, and then I printed out my table of contents. Once I had it printed out, I went through and crossed off each one of the sections that I had something written in. Now I knew I was going to have to tweak it and fine tune it and, write a little bit better, but I had something in there. And then I went to the sections that I'd never written about. So you don't write anything about advancing scientific knowledge or assumptions, limitations, and delimitations. That's not in the prospectus. So I knew I needed to find articles on that. So then I would go to the criterion table and it would say, this section should be about 2 to 3 paragraphs. So I wrote that down and I put myself a due date and I highlighted it in yellow. And I put that on my wall in my office. And then every Sunday, I would look to see what I was going to write about the next weekend. I would go to Google Scholar or I'd go to ProQuest and pull down a dissertation. And I would pull those articles because I already knew which section I needed to write about in order to keep to my plan. So I just wanted to give you guys a visual. And once again, this was just my own system. It may or may not work perfectly for you, but I wanted you to have an idea of what that looked like. Second thing is, have yourself a plan. So now you're in the very first dissertation course. Stephen Covey said it best when he said, begin with the end in mind. So all I did was I went and printed out my program of study. So I went to the EDD DNA, printed out my program of study, and I went, okay, if I want to graduate at the end of these 4 classes, what do I need to do in that 4th class? What's the date? What do I need to do in the 3rd class? What's the date? What's the milestone? And then I had to work myself backwards. And that's when I realized, oh my goodness, I'm far behind. I'm not going to hit that goal. So what do I have to do? And that's when I had to kind of self-assess. And I go, okay, I need to write better. I need to read more. And then I need to spend every Saturday and Sunday from 7 to 3 or 7 to 4 in my office in order to stay on track. This next one, quick visual, just wanted to show you. This was my ISP. So I just wanted you to show put specific due dates, put realistic due dates, and put very specific of what you're working on. That way your chair can help you to kind of self-assess and realize, no, Rach, you're going to need a little bit more time for that process, or we can get it done sooner than that because you're already a little bit further. And they can really help you to plan that out before you get fully invested in that ISP, which is your individual success plan. And you can really do a great job of holding yourself accountable. Now, this next one, things you need to finalize. Well, your 10 key points, you're going to keep that updated all the time. I know when I was in residency, I was like, I got an A on this. They said it was fine. I never thought I was going to have to look at it again. No, you want to keep that succinct, high quality journal articles, very, very recent, and keep it on your desktop, always updated. I'm a very systems and process type person, and that was one of the systems and processes that I used that helped me more than anything else. Well, besides having 2 monitors. Because every time I got feedback from my committee, whether it was my methodologist, my content expert, or my chair, that one of my 10 key points was out of alignment, I took their feedback, I plugged it into my 10 key points, I put it back in alignment, sent that to them, and very quickly they could say, yep, Rach, you're right on target. Then I would take that in one monitor and I would move that into my prospectus or my proposal. Much easier than trying to remember or going back and forth. This was a very, very efficient way of me reducing my review cycles. So keep your 10 key points very, very updated. For those of you that are still working on your prospectus, just remember this is not about GPA. This is only about passing and progression. So make sure that you're not overwriting. That prospectus is supposed to be 7 to 10 pages of text. So if you took out the criterion tables, which you should never do, it should just be 7 to 10 pages of text. So if you're overwriting, instead of saying, well, I really need to write all this because my committee won't understand, I challenge you to think of it another way. That you need to self-assess how you're writing it so that you can say it in a more concise way, so that you use less words to say it in a simpler way that they'll understand. All right, let's go on to this. So for those of you that might get feedback on your writing, I encourage you to use some of the resources that we have. We have the Learning Lounge, we have the library, we have GCU webinars and content clinics. They're on the front page of DCNet all the time. For those of you that might start to struggle when you're getting ready to do your proposal defense, there's many alumni that have done their presentations for you live, and they're on the front page of DCNet as well. I would watch that and see how those learners talk. You can find mine there as well as maybe 5 or 6 others of graduates from the program. But Thinking Storm, if you haven't been using it, I encourage you to, because they don't serve as your editor, but they're an online resource where GCU pays 10 hours a year, and they are 24 hours. So you send it to them, and within 24 to 48 hours, they'll give you feedback on the basic mechanics of your writing. And you don't need a chair or a dissertation specialist editor to help you with your writing. Scientific, scholarly dissertation writing is not complex. It's not. It's very succinct. It's very concise. It's not about big fancy words or really long drawn out sentences. Those people that work in Thinking Storm and in our Learning Lounge are able to bring you back to basics. So I encourage you to use whatever resources that you have in order to make sure that your writing is at the level that it needs to be. So this is some other tips on your proposal, and I wanted to make sure this document here, and I wanted to make sure, I know you guys have seen this. This is on the DCNet. It's in the research tab. The dean put it there about 1.5 years ago, but this was one of the best tools that I had, because it tells you exactly your 10 points which section of the prospectus they go in, and which section of the proposal they go in. So if you keep this bad boy totally aligned and updated at all times, whether you're working concurrently on your prospectus or your proposal or both, which is this class, this was such a great document because I knew already which chapter to flip to in order to update it to make sure that I had hit each one of those points. Now this next one, for those of you that are already really good at this, I'm sure this is a little bit redundant, but I wanted to show you that once you move your prospectus into your proposal template, a couple things that I want you to remember. Get really used to using the navigation function. So you're going to go up here where it says view, and then you'll click on navigation, click that, and all of the headings that you have styled will pop up on the side like this. That way, you don't have to keep scrolling through. When you get to your proposal, it's going to be 100 pages. You won't have to keep scrolling through all of that. You'll be able to click here on intro or background of the study, and it will take you immediately to that section. So that was another tip that was very, very useful for me. So styling your headings, and all you have to do is just, I won't be able to do it on my screen, but let's say you wanted to change one of your headings and you want it to be on your table of contents. All you need to do is highlight it, right-click, go to Style Heading 3, and it will pop up on your table of contents. That way you can use this navigation panel. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is really, really important. So when you are starting to work more and more with your prospectus and proposal templates, the scoring is going to be different. And I want to explain that. So when you're going through and you are doing your document, and I just want to show you a visual. So for those of you, can you guys see my screen? Dr. Miller, can you see it okay? Thumbs up? Okay. Awesome, thanks. This is really important. So when you first go to pull up your criterion table, don't do what I did. I love everything nice and neat and clean. So I erased all of the text. I erased all of the bubble comments. Don't do that. Our academic quality review department spend a lot of time to explain the template and to explain the process, either in bubble comments or in the text of the templates. So the first thing, and if you've already gotten rid of it, don't feel embarrassed, nobody knows. Go in and read the text. Read each section of what was written in the template, and then go through each one of those bubble comments and see what was written. Familiarize yourself and immerse yourself in this template because it's meant to tell you what you need to do. You're going to tailor it to your own study, that's for sure, but they're going to give you a very detailed and high-level way of looking at what should be in there and why. So I invite you to spend the time before you move into any of these templates to lean into them and really understand what tools are already there. Second part is when you start working more heavily in the proposal template, I encourage you, before you start drafting that section, go to the criterion table. This section's going to give you an overview of the research and the problem. It's going to tell you what needs to be in that section, and then it's going to tell you minimum 3 to 4 paragraphs or approximately 1 page. And then look, 3 to 4 paragraphs, look at the topics. There's 3 topic sentences or 3 topic areas that need to be included. That is a hint from me to you. That's normal throughout all of these templates. Depending on how many topics you need to have in there, that's usually how many paragraphs or how many sections. So you want to make sure that each one of those 3 to 4 paragraphs, this is a paragraph, this is a paragraph, this is a paragraph. Now, when you get to chapter 2, it's going to be a little bit different because your chapter 2 is going to be a lot more unique to your study and your body of knowledge and your lit review than any other chapter. But the other chapters are going to be very, very similar to other people's studies. So before you go to write a chapter or write a section, always go to this grayed out area here. That brings me back to scoring. So when you turn this into your chair, you always leave in this criterion table. The next thing that you do is you're going to put in your score. A 0 means you didn't do it. It's not in there. You didn't write about it. Not acceptable. A 1 means it's in there, but it's going to need some heavy revisions in order to have it cover what it needs to cover as it transforms into your dissertation. So don't take a 1 bad. It is what it is. I mean, there was several sections. You saw my table of contents, right? How there were several sections that even after being in the program for 2 years, I'd never written about. I'd never written about advancing scientific knowledge or limitations and delimitations. Never written about it. Never read about it. But don't take a 1 as personal. That's just your committee's way of saying, hey, we need some more beef here. We need this to be developed a little bit more. A 2 means good enough. It's doable. It's aligned. You hit the very high level criterion for that section. Good enough. So for those of you that might be like me, who when someone took 1 point off for a discussion question, I was like, why? What did I do wrong? And I was all over that. Let it go. Let it go. A 2 is not like getting a C or a D. A 2 in one of these sections is that it's good enough. But I want you to remember my voice in the back of your head when you get your first scores back and your committee tells you that it's a 2 in a proposal, but it's now a 1 at full dissertation. Or if it's a 2 in prospectus and it becomes a 1 in your proposal. You have to keep on developing it because there's different higher expectations in each one of those templates. And that was something that really, it took me a while to wrap my head around. The second part is when you're in the prospectus, your methodologist will, and your chair, they won't be doing heavy editing. They'll be putting bubble comments in there and a global summary of what you need to address. And like my chair, her first draft, 60, 70 bubble comments throughout my document. And her overall thing was, Rach, good job. And I was like, I don't know what you mean by good job, but I've never had this much red ink in my life, probably on all my papers combined. So, but that was her way of saying, you said it different here, and then you said it a little different here, and then you didn't explain enough here, and you didn't explain enough here. And it took me a couple iterations of back and forth with her until I could understand how deep or how high level I needed to be. So I want to encourage you, don't get caught up in the scores. Focus your energy on the comments. And just know that if your committee tells you in one bubble comment in the very last paragraph on the very last page, the expectation when you're a doctoral learner is that you will look back in every single section where that comment might also be wrong or need to be done better, and that you go back and you fix it everywhere else. Doctoral committees do not expect, kind of very different from your faculty or your teachers from before, where if it's wrong, they'll mention it in every section. Your committee won't do that. That's not their role. Their role is to let you know, oh, looks good, looks good, looks good, looks good. Oh, page 97. Oh, the way you said it here puts all that out of alignment. So either you need to fix it here or you need to fix it everywhere else. And so just understanding that writing about research is all about ripples. That's going to help save you a lot of anxiety. All right, so the next one that I wanted to, and I want to give us just a few minutes for questions and answerings, but here's a slide on chapter 2, and just know that the more you read, the more self-confidence you will allow yourself. Keep your articles very high quality. And if you don't already have multiple journal articles from 2015 and 2016, you need to get there. So you need to update any articles that are from 2010, 2011, 2012, because just like my faculty here at the College of Doctoral Studies, there's many, many that are out there publishing and publishing often and publishing in research circles. There's so much research going on every single day across this country of ours that you need to have your head in that and your hand in that and know what's happening in the field in order to produce a high quality dissertation. And last but not least, I want to remind everyone that we are so blessed to have the opportunity to become doctors. This is a gift. This is a gift that Heavenly Father has given us. And sometimes we might forget that we signed up for this program and that we're doing this to ourselves, all these late nights and these sacrifices that we and our families make for this. But it is a gift. It is a gift for us to be able to have this opportunity to have a better life for our families, but also to advance our careers or whatever we're doing this very, very difficult thing for. And I just want to reiterate to everyone that this is a gift to be able to be in this program and to do this amazing thing. And I want to encourage each and every one of you that you can do this. This webinar is not meant to blow your mind or to make you feel any kind of panic or anxiety. It's meant to share with you not only how to kind of look at it in a different way and go through that cognitive shift, but some of the tools and tricks and tips that were very helpful to me from what I've heard from other people and what also worked for me for my journey. And that was what this webinar is about, is I want to encourage you to keep keeping on. Have a very structured plan, but one that works for you, because each one of us is wired a little bit different. And so I encourage you to kind of, after you've had a chance to kind of think about what I've shared with you today, but also with what my amazing panelists I've seen. I think you guys have flipped the odometer on the chats. But I wanted to just encourage you to take some time to do that self-assessment, to kind of think about what you've heard today, what you've seen with your chair so far, and how you can build that into a project, because you're the project manager. And the more you feel in control of this journey, and you are, your chair is not in control of this process. They're here to help you navigate. You are the one that is in control of this process. But you need to know what's coming next, and you need to know what the research is out there already. And that will give you the self-confidence to have those conversations with your chair and to write in a very self-confident way. And so with that, I know we're getting to the end of our time, but I wanted to, first and foremost, I want to thank each and every learner for being here. I know this is a very busy time. You all have personal lives. We're all adult learners. And I know that it was a big sacrifice for you to be on this call with me. And I appreciate your time. I also want to thank my panelists. I know each of you, this is all on your own time, off the clock, so to speak. And I really appreciate the support that you've showed to these learners by being here today, hearing my message, and offering them the support and encouragement that they need. Tarilla, I wanted to open up the floor to any of the panelists or any questions that might have come through that maybe I should address before we say goodbye.
I think we did pretty well with getting them answered. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add anything.
For any of my other panelists, do you guys have any questions that I could maybe still address before we say goodnight, or any comments that you guys have before we end our call?
I have one. Because it's an online approach to this, your model, if you will, for how to structure a program of writing and literature review, as you described it, is extremely valuable. It was quite a different process back in the day when you had an idea and good luck, hope you can figure this out. I think that's a big help to everybody.
Thank you. No, I heard so many stories from the faculty. Everyone here is a doctor, and they all have had trad chairs. And they explained to me, Rach, back in the day, you were lucky if you found a chair, and you had to do what they were doing for their research. And if they were a quant chair, you had to do a quant study, and you really didn't have a lot of freedom. And so when I was going through the program, I thought, my brain thinks in a very process way. So that's why not everything that I did is going to work for everybody, but some of the things will help some of the people. And that's what I was hoping to do today. So thank you, Dr. Jenkel. I appreciate your comment. Tarilla, would you mind to help me to email this out to all of our participants tomorrow and also to the chairs?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, I want to thank everyone, both my panelists and all of our learners. And I want to just encourage everyone. I really look forward to seeing all of you cross that stage of graduation. Have a great night. Bye, everyone.